Take one. As we look into Mark's text here, we have a group of people coming to Jesus, those dreaded Pharisees. And we see that they come to test Jesus by asking him a question. Well, that word test can also be translated tempt. And in Mark's gospel, there's only two that verb is referred to, the Pharisees and Satan. And so you get a little sense of what might be going on here as they ask their question. Well, what does happen is that there is a misinterpretation, a misuse of Scripture by these learned men. And from that, they have a misunderstanding of God's design, not only for faith, but also living out that faith. And so we have a question of, is it lawful to divorce? Well, as we see in our society today, divorce is one of those topics that is sort of very delicately walked over, or walked by, or walked around, because it's one of those topics that is filled with disappointment. It's filled with disagreement. It's filled with discomfort whenever you might bring it up in conversation. Disappointment, disagreement, discomfort. You might want to say that this whole thing about divorce is about dissing someone. Dissing a relationship. But too often in the church and also in our social groups, we want to dance around the topic. We want to explain it away. We want to justify the behavior, that there is a reason to be able to do that. Well, too often you and I set limits to our love. And in some ways we ask the question, is it lawful? Can we find an excuse? Can we find a way out? We want to negotiate the standard of our relationship, whether it be marriage or a friendship or a work relationship. Somehow we want to negotiate through, as we look at the traditions, as we look at our experience, and somehow make promises and have good intentions, but have an escape clause, have a way out. So we argue for the possible exceptions. Well, possible exceptions are nothing but a concession to our self-centeredness. It's a concession to our self-satisfaction. That if somehow something is going wrong in the relationship, we want to get out of it. We want to find a better way because we see something greener on the other side of the pasture. But this self-centeredness, this self-satisfaction is nothing but a symptom of a closed mind and a hardened heart. And the reality of it is, it's real, hurtful sin. In your relationships, whether it be in your marriage or whether it be in your friendships, whether it be in relationships in the workplace or in your congregation, what sidetracks the relationship from God's intention? Because as we find out, those things that sidetrack may eventually derail the relationship from God's intention. Yeah, in some ways it leads to divorce, but there are things that happen prior to that. It might be an improper relationship, an affair. But sometimes those improper relationships happen in the most simple ways. Do you have an affair with Facebook? Or with somebody who is a friend of yours on Facebook? Is there an improper relationship going on? Maybe that improper relationship isn't with a person, but it's with a thing. Maybe it's with Amazon Prime. It could be with gambling. It could be with your consumption of sports or your favorite vehicle. And sometimes pastors even fall in that relationship challenge. And sometimes for some of us, the mistress might become the church. But whenever we sidetrack or even to derail the relationship, what it means is that we force the other one to the outside, to the outskirts, that there's somebody much closer to us. And that person then becomes marginalized. And because of our relationship with the other thing or the other person, we cause the one who should be nearest to us to be alone. And that's exactly where Jesus ended up. He ended up forced to the outside. He ended up marginalized. He ended up where he was caused to be alone. Alone on the cross. That's the first take. Next, take two.